So, good afternoon guys. Ngayon nandito na naman ang aming grupo para magbigay ng kaalaman about sa may research. At ito'y patungkol naman ngayon sa may special education dito sa may Pilipinas. At ito'y nakatuon sa mga lugar na Catbalogan City, Samar at saka sa may Isabela. So, una gusto ko muna humingi ng paumanhin dahil hindi namin nagawa yung video ng magkakasama kaming lahat. I hope guys sana magustuhan nyo pa rin at mapanood nyo sana ito sa my YouTube at sana isuportahan nyo. So maraming salamat sa inyo.
Hello guys, good day. This is JULIUS ABRERA of BSc Social Studies 3A, and today I'm going to share you the study that we have chosen about special education, and I'm going to give you a brief background to it. So guys, let's get started. The title of the research study that we have chosen is the Special Education Head Start Program of Isabela, Philippines, and this was made by Miss Adelaida J. Liano and Mr. Arnel C. Malano. Early childhood education lays the foundation for continuing development of children in terms of knowledge, skills, and attitude. ECE, or the early childhood education, plays an important and dynamic role in the formation of learners. In this context, early education of gifted and talented children must be given attention and support. In the Philippines, special education meets the needs of an exceptional child or a group of outstanding children through educational plans and instruments which could develop individuals' capacity and potentiality to the highest level. There is a wide range of individuals' capacity, or there is a wide range of exceptional covered by SPED. However, in developing programs for gifted, many controversies and questions are raised. And one of these is, who is the gifted child? Or what does giftedness really means? The knowledge about giftedness to everybody helps a lot in dealing and guiding the gifted children.
Methodology. This is quantitative study which utilizes a descriptive method. The participants were purposefully selected. Criteria for the selections of participants were based on the aim of the investigations. The goal of the study was to assess the management of Head Start's program. Thus, only the administrator, teachers of Head Starts, and parents of preschool pupils under the program. Statistical tools comprise frequency, weighted mean, and rating scale. The following tabulary rating scale was used in determining the level on how the participant assessed the Head Starts to interviewers.
The results refer to the Special Education Head Start Program of Isabela, Philippines. The findings are according to perception level of participants on the 9 program areas, namely Table 2 represents the organization of Head Start program for gifted and talented preschoolers. A mean of 3.5919 for the selection of preschool teachers for Head Start program, which indicated as very evident. A mean of 3.4596 for the selection of preschoolers for Head Head Start program, and a mean of 3.5202 for the organization of preschool classes for the Head Start program. Findings show that participants distinguish the organization of the program as a very great extent or very evident, connoted by an overall mean of 3.5239. Table 3 exposes the extent of implementing the standards of Head Start program for screening of gifted and talented preschoolers. A mean of 3.1176 for assessment team and indicated as great extent. A mean of 3.2096 for submission of an application form. A mean of 3.2819 for conduct of informal assessment. A mean of 3.1152 for undergo formal assessment. A mean of 3.3051 for consolidation of assessment results. A mean of 3.2397 for rules are strictly followed for the informal assessment. A mean of 3.1397 for grading system. A mean of 3.1446 for acceleration of exceptional children through an informal assessment. A mean of 3.2279 for the class size. And lastly, a mean of 3.2034 for the orientation of grades and guardians of the informal assessment. An overall weighted mean of 3.1796 was noted, which is described as great extent or evident. Table 4 shows the extent of qualifying the gifted and talented preschoolers based on prescribed indicators. An overall weighted mean of 3.2904, which is indicated as great extent or evident.
Level of competencies of teachers of Head Start program. The Table 5 are the perceptions of participants on the competencies of Head Start teacher as nurturer, observer, planner, facilitator, evaluator, and communicator. As a whole, these competencies were rated with an overall mean of 2.8264 and considered as evident. Implementation of prepared curriculum for gifted and talented preschoolers. The Table 6 illustrates the observation of participants on curriculum preference for gifted and talented preschoolers of the Department of Education of Isabela, Philippines. An overall mean of 3.3184 was noted, which is prepared to as evident. Participants measure each of the curriculum preference as follows. Interest-based curriculum with a mean of 3.3305 regarded as evident. Thematic-based with a mean of 3.3435 reflected as evident also. And situational approach with a mean of 3.2813 is also described as evident. Evidence of prepared Head Start teaching and learning strategies. Based from Table 7, the participants perceive an overall mean of 3.3052, corresponds as evident for the suggested Head Start teaching and learning strategies. Then, the following are the individual mean of each competency of the Head Start teacher. As a nurturer, with a mean of 3.3952, as an observer, with a mean of 3.4449, as a planner, with a mean of 3.4326, as a facilitator, with a mean of 3.429, as an evaluator, with a mean of 3.3431, and as a communicator with a mean of 3,3713.
The table 8, which is the programs and services for gifted and talented preschoolers. So in the table 8, it shows that the assessment of participants on the evidence level of employing suitable programs and services for gifted and talented preschoolers. This is summed up with an overall mean of 3.2384, which is measurement as evident. Because based on the table, all the following items are reached the measurements of great extent or evidence. So next is the table 9. So assessing the progress of the gifted and talented preschoolers. So in table 9, the observation of the participants concerning the grade of evaluation of progress of gifted and talented preschoolers, children as exposed employment of this area was estimated to a great extent with an overall mean of 3.3220. In evaluating the performance progress of learners, participants observed with the use of checklist and portfolio as great extent. The table 10. So it is the support system to Head Start program. So based from the table 10, the participants showed or perceived the great extent level of support system of a Head Start program. So the overall perception of the respondents in parents and school support garnered an overall mean of 3.2965. They viewed the program as a regularly evaluated in terms of the effectiveness in the holistic development of the gifted child. So that's it.
The participants to some degree were contented with the application of desired teaching and learning strategies, thus implying an in-depth assessment on the efficacy of instructional techniques. They assume an intense engagement of preferred strategies, and eventually stress on motivating and challenging each learner become responsive and constructive. Participants are fairly convinced with the administration of the Head Start programs and services. So there is an expectancy for educational provisions that underscore the unique abilities and talents of the gifted preschooler. For the participants, checklist and portfolio as means to evaluate progress of the gifted and talented child are not sufficient. They recognize other approaches of gathering, documenting, and safeguarding of information about the strength, limitation, and progress of the gifted. In line with support system, there is partnership among stakeholders. However, participants realize the need to strengthen collaboration between school and home to better respond to the needs of preschool learners. With exceptional performance, both in academic and non-academic undertakings, as a whole, there are still target enhancement in every area of Head Start program for gifted and talented preschool learners.
It represents the kind of students with special education needs enrolled in special education centers or school. The paper used secondary information from CSWD of Catmalogan and from SPED delivering schools. Data show that out of 471 personals with disabilities scattered in the 57 barangays of Catmalogan, only 86 were of the school CSWD record did not classify the kind of disability and the age. Most of the disabled persons are found in Mercedes, Quindapunan, and Pangdan, but there were also several in the island barangays of Basiao and Bagohon. The top 10 cases are speech, hearing impairment, Down syndrome, autism, learning disability, and ADHD, comprising about 31.4, 23.3, 15.1, and 17.6, and 6.0 6.9% of the population. The rest has intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, and visual impairment students, which are enrolled in 4 schools of one, which is the Long Sped Center in the 2nd district of Samar. Other students with SEN cannot access SPED classes due to distance. The special facilities and expertise needed to handle students with SEN is seen as the greatest challenge to the Department of Education in attaining its goal to provide all-inclusive education for types of exceptional children. Into the
methodology. So let's start. So this research presents the kind of students with special needs enrolled in special education, so specifically with the centers and schools. So the data used in the study come from the CSWD of the Catbalogan City and from the Philippine Statistics Office. Records from the DepEd, specifically from the schools offering classes about SEN, were also collected. For the validation of the data collected, schools visitation was conducted to gather additional data on SEN in school. So access to the SPED teacher school, monthly learners movement, and attendance about learners with SEN were also requested. So all the data were presented in the terms of frequency counts, percentages, and was shown in tables and graphs. Identity or data gathering and observation was given due to consideration. So that's it.
Results and discussion. The primary purpose of this is to present the profile of special education needs in Catbalogan City. Data are based on what are available from the SPED teachers and the school. People with disabilities in Catbalogan City. Table 1 shows that out of 57 barangays, 43 of which is home to people with disabilities, there are 471 identified persons with disabilities, or about half of 8% of the entire population of Catbalogan City. Barangay Soplasiao and Bagondon has the highest percentage of population with special needs, while Mercedes, Guindapunan, and Pangdan has the highest number of people with special needs. Next, in-school children with special education needs. The figure 1 shows the total population of in-school learners with special education needs or SEN in Catbalogan City. There are 86 of them, in which 37 or 43% are female and 49, which is 57%, are male. The learners with hearing impairment has the highest percentage, totaling to about 31.4%, followed by the learners with Down syndrome with a 23.3%, learners with autism with 15%, and the lowest percentage is the learners with visual impairments, having 2.3% in LOIS. Frequency of children with special education needs. At the national level, the Department of Education has recorded around 250,000 enrollees with special education needs in the elementary level, and about 100,000 at the secondary level in school year 2015 to 2016. Learners with hearing impairment. In the Philippines, the conservative estimate is that 2% of the population has hearing impairment, and the number may increase if children below school age and persons who lost hearing sensitivity due to old age are included. There are a total of 13 learners with autism in Catbalogan City. 8 are male and 5 are females. Learners with level 2 autism have the highest population of 5 or 38.4% learners.
4.5. Learners with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD says that ADHD is a condition in which children exhibit significant differences in the ability to pay attention and to engage in dangerous activities. Children with ADHD may have difficulties with academics and with forming relationships with his or her peers if interventions and appropriate teaching methods are not implemented in the classroom. To draw up an individualized education plan, a teacher can use a diagnostic prescriptive evaluation approach. Their behavior changes as they grow. For example, a child may show gross motor overactivity, always running or climbing, and frequently shifting from one activity to another. On the other hand, older children may be restless and fidget in their seats or play with their chairs and desks. About 5 to 7% of the world population has ADHD. In the US, parental report indicates that more than 1 in 10 school-age children were diagnosed to have ADHD and have been increasing. It was estimated by Gresha 2008 that there are about 1.3 million Filipino children afflicted with the condition. According to the ADHD Society of the Philippines, around 3.5 million of Filipinos have ADHD. About 60% and 80% of adults and adolescents have symptoms of ADHD, respectively. About 40 to 50% of children with ADHD have learning disabilities and 30 to 50% engage in disorderly conduct and exhibit signs of antisocial behavior. 60% Journal of Academic Research. In Catbalogan City, only 6 are in school. This type of special need is not given much attention by many parents as many never recognize that their children have the disorder. Some of those who have been told to have ADHD are in the state of denial and have a hard time considering it as behavioral disorder that needs attention. This was the reason why Proclamation number 472 in September 18, 2003 declared every third week of October as ADHD Awareness Week. In the proclamation, it says that the lack of understanding and awareness about ADHD leads to misconceptions and social stigma, which hinders access to effective treatment, increases the risk of comorbid conditions and complications such as conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, and antisocial disorder. Many researchers have shown the direct link between having an ADHD and being a juvenile delinquent. Young and Tom Foley, 1996. And that about 40% of adults in prison has ADHD. Figure 5 shows the distribution of ADHD students. According to level, shows that there are more males with ADHD than female, which is similar to Philippine Edward profile. Let's go to 4.6. Learners with intellectual disability. There are total of 5 learners with intellectual disability. 2 are male and 5 female. Intellectual disability refers to substantial limitations in present functioning. At present, many children with intellectual disability are enrolled in the regular classroom. They are mainstreamed in the academic subjects under the regular teacher and the special education teacher. The practice of mainstreaming are supported by law. Some call it is a cost-cutting trick that denies needed services. Mainstreaming benefits the entire student body by teaching kids about diversity in the world and helping them develop empathy. In the study of Ferguson, 2014, suggests that oftentimes opportunity for genuine inclusion of children with intellectual disabilities is compromised by challenges and barriers that exist within the educational system. Let's go to 4.7. Learners with Down syndrome or DS is a genetic disorder that includes a combination of birth defects, some degree of mental retardation, characteristic facial features, heart defects, endocrine problems, problems with hearing and vision, and other health problems such as immunodeficiency, Down syndrome continues to be the most common chromosomal disorder in the US, with about 1 in every 700 as the disorder. In the Philippines, it's 100 more or about 1,875 cases of Down syndrome every year according to Down Syndrome Association of the Philippines. Down syndrome is named after Dr. Langdon Down. Is the best known and well-researched biological condition associated with mental retardation. In Catbalogan, a total of 20 learners with Down syndrome were at school, 4 male and 16 female. Level 1 have 44.4%, Level 2 have 33.3%, and Level 3, 22.2% Down syndrome cases. There are more female learners with Down syndrome than male in the city, unlike in other cities where there is a need to modify the curriculum for learners with Down syndrome, which means it will be difficult to mainstream them to a regular classroom. Learners with Down syndrome need a functional curriculum that will train them on the life skills, which are essentially the adapted behavior skills. The goal and direction of a functional curriculum is towards self-destruction, self-direction, and regulation, and the ability to select appropriate options in everyday life at home, in school, and in the community. The functional curriculum fosters independent living, enjoyment of leisure and social activities, improve quality of life. 4.8 learners with cerebral palsy, learners with cerebral palsy or orthopedically impaired is characterized by disturbances of voluntary functions of coordination, involuntary convulsions, and other motor disorders. The children with CP have little or no control over the arms, legs, or speech depending on the type or degree of impairment. They may have impaired visions or hearing, perceptual and sensory difficulties. Learning difficulties and intellectual impairments may accompany cerebral palsy. There are a total of 3 learners with cerebral palsy or orthopedically impaired. 1 male and 2 are female. Level 2 has the biggest population with 66.6, and Level 3 has 33.3% of learners. In special education, children who are blind are differentiated from those who have low vision. Blind children use their sense of touch to read and train in orientation and mobility to move around and travel independently. A child with low vision learns to read large materials in large print. Learners with learning disability, there are 10 learners with learning disability, 6 are male and 4 are female. While level 3 has 20% and level 2 has 40% and level 1 same with level 2 and 40%. Learning disability is a generic term that refers to an heterogeneous group or disorders manifested by significant difficulties in the acquisition of use of listening and speaking, reading, writing, reasoning, or mathematical abilities. Special education experts highly recommend the use of the diagnostic prescriptive evaluation approach in teaching children with learning disabilities, similar to learners with ADHD and intellectual disability. Inclusive education, to date, the government support to improve access to quality education for all is still very limited. The deficit in classroom, teaching and learning resources and number of qualified teachers are still to be addressed. There are very limited schools in the country that offer special classes for children with special needs, and mainstreaming of classes may be an answer. However, integrating SEN to a regular classroom possesses many challenges. Mainstreaming of SEN possesses positive and negative effects to SEN and non-SEN students, and the entire environment is not yet ready for such condition. Existing school facilities, instructional materials, curriculum teaching approaches, school organization and management, and other support system, including identification and monitoring, still needs to be adapted. For an inclusive education, parents, school staff, and the community still have bias towards children with disabilities.
Okay, so after we identify the problem title, the methodology used, and the results and findings, punta naman tayo ngayon sa recommendations. The number of children with disability that are in schools are too small than the potential number, suggesting that many of potential special education needs are not provided with the appropriate educational services. And lastly, the availability of schools offering special education is also very much wanting.